Hi guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it is your first time here. For today's video I'm going to be doing a pre-Christmas book haul, and if you are familiar with my videos then you may know that I haven't done a book haul video since September, when I put myself on a book buying ban of sorts, and yet somehow over the last 3 months I have still managed to collect quite a few books. But I will say that most of these books were either books that I had my eye on for a while and I spotted them in charity shops, or they were just part of an offer that was too good to pass up on. So there are quite a few, which again, if you're familiar with my videos, you'll know is usually the case when I do a haul video, and I do my best to give you a full synopsis of what each one is about. But some of these I've literally just picked up because I have seen them recommended by a booktuber whose opinion I really trust. Some of them I picked up just because I thought that the blurb on the back sounded really interesting, but as I said, there are quite a few, so let's just jump straight in. So the first set of books are all books which I picked up in charity shops, and there is a charity shop close to me which does a 3 books for £1 or 4 books for £1 or something like that. So it's always really good value, and they've usually got quite a good selection. I don't get to go there very often because I do have to travel quite far to get there. But these books are all from there. So first up we have The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. Now there is a definite theme to a lot of the books that I picked up this month. I think I've mentioned in other videos that I'm feeling quite dark and melancholic at this time of year, so I've gone for a lot of psychological thriller type books, and The 13th Tale is a thriller. I picked this up because I saw it mentioned, I think it was in a BuzzFeed or some such article, it was 20 books or 30 books with huge twists that you never saw coming, and there are quite a few of them here that were mentioned on that article. And then I saw Kate Howes, I think, talking about it on her channel, so when I spotted it in the charity shop I had to pick it up. And I don't know that much about it. I know that it is set in a house, I know that it is quite dark, and it's about a family secret, and I absolutely love books like that. They always remind me very much of Kate Morton's style of writing, so I'm really looking forward to picking this one up. Next up we have Still Life by Louise Penny. This was one that I ordered from a charity shop online, and I didn't realise that it was going to be so tiny. I don't think it's showing up on here, but it is just a really tiny version of the book, so I was a little bit disappointed. But again, this is a thriller. I saw this recommended on Katie from Life Between Words channel, and she really has been enjoying these books, and we have such a similar taste in books that I thought that I would definitely give it a go. This is the first book in a series about an inspector called Chief Inspector Armand Gamache, and I think that they're just kind of cozy mystery type books, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Then we have The Silk Merchant's Daughter by Dina Jeffries. I read The Tea Planter's Wife by Dina Jeffries a couple of years ago, and it didn't blow me away, but I enjoyed the exotic surroundings. It was certainly a book that had its flaws. I didn't particularly like her characters, but I liked her description and her plot lines enough that when I spotted this one I thought that I would give it a go. This is set in French Indochina in the 1950s, and it follows the story of an 18-year-old girl, and I think it's very much a coming of age story. I think it's got a bit of mystery, a bit of love, a bit of heartbreak, and yeah, just very much about this young girl who's half French, half Vietnamese, living under harsh French rule, just finding out who she is. So again, I'm looking forward to reading this one. Then I spotted Fault Line by Robert Goddard. I've talked about Robert Goddard in some of my other videos. I absolutely love his style of thriller, and this one is about a man who is found dead in his car, and it just looks like your average suicide, apart from the young child who is in the boot of the car, and that is really all I know about it, and that was really all I needed to know. I will probably read anything that Robert Goddard wrote, and that particularly sounds like it's going to be a really intriguing and twisty psychological thriller. Another book which featured in the BuzzFeed article that I read was Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, and this is set in the 1860s, and it follows the story of 2 orphans, one who is growing up among petty thieves and one who is growing up in a mansion not far away. And I don't know much more about the story apart from that, and I understand that their 2 stories are intrinsically linked somehow. And again, this featured on that list as having a dark twist, or just a twist in the story that you really didn't see coming, so I don't need to know much more than that. It's quite a big book. It is nearly 600 pages, but I've seen the other books that Sarah Waters has written, really raved about, and not seen many people talk about this one. But again, it's one that intrigued me enough that I wanted to pick it up. And then the final book that I picked up in the charity shop was Fool Me Once by Harlan Coben. Harlan Coben is a very well-known thriller writer. Again, I was really in the mood for picking up thrillers. This one is about a husband who was murdered and a wife who was witness to that murder, but then she sees him appear on a nanny cam or something, and everything just kind of gets thrown up in the air. It's full of twists and turns, and I've never read a Harlan Coben book, and I often see him talked about as being really a really great thriller writer, so I'm intrigued to see whether his style of writing is something that I enjoy. Okay, the next set of books I picked up from a shop we have in the UK called The Works, and they were doing a 6 books for £10 offer, and there were a couple on there that I really wanted to read, so I kind of picked them up and then I scrolled through the other ones and added a few that took my fancy. So, and first up we have Noughts and Crosses by Ian Rankin. Again, this is a very famous series of books. It is a crime series and it's about Detective Sergeant Rebus. I picked this up because I recently watched a television programme which explored different genres of books, and it was really fascinating, but I cannot remember what it's called now, so I will stick it down in the description box below in case anyone's interested to try and find it. But it basically was talking about the formula of writing books, and Ian Rankin's stories were ones which were rated quite highly as being kind of cosy crime novels, and I've seen quite a few people talk about Inspector Rebus books or Detective Rebus books, and I've never read one, and they are super short, and yeah, I was just really interested to see what they would be about. Again, this has come and it's a tiny mass market paperback version, which is a little bit but yeah, I'm gonna give it a go and see whether I like it. Then I picked up I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson and The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. I don't know anything about these books other than the fact that I've seen quite a few booktubers talk about them. I believe that they are young adult books. I believe that they explore quite diverse themes and plot lines, and I'm not really bothered about knowing much more than that. I'll probably pick them up when I'm looking for quite a quick and easy read, and I'm happy to go into them fairly blind. Then I picked up The Atlas of Us by Tracy Buchanan. This is about a woman who goes to Thailand following the Boxing Day tsunamis to try and find her mother who has gone missing, and once she arrives she finds out that her mother's life was much more complicated than she realised, and she begins to unravel a whole host of secrets and love affairs and scandals and betrayal and just all kinds of things, and it sounds absolutely fascinating and I can't wait to read it. And then I just really needed to pick up a couple more books to make the 6 for £10, so I chose Jenny Colgan's The Christmas Surprise. Again, don't know anything about this. Jenny Colgan's blurbs are usually just notes from her about why she decided to write the book, so I don't know anything about it, but I really enjoy her books. They are always really easy to read, they're always really cosy with really happy endings, and I don't need to know much more than that. It says on the front, Rosie Hopkins is about to have the loveliest Christmas ever, so it seems perfect for this time of year. So what more do I need to know? And then the final book that I picked up from The Works is The Exclusives by Rebecca Thornton, and it says on the front, Prep meets The Secret History meets Mean Girls. Stunning. And I understand that it's about 2 girls who were best friends when they were in school in the 1990s, and then flash forward to the present, and one of the girls is looking for the other, and something happened during their time at school. Some kind of dark twisted thing happened. Again, dark twisted thing. It's just about both girls having to face something that they've run away from for such a long time. It says on the back, beginning with one ill-fated night, The Exclusives charts the agonising spiral of friendship gone wrong, the heartache and betrayal of letting down those closest to you, and the poisonous possibilities of what we wouldn't do when everything we prize is placed under threat. Just sounds really, really interesting. And then some books which I picked up new, mostly because they were available at a really good price. First, I have got Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. This is Jodi Picoult's latest release, and it follows the story of a nurse who is working in the prenatal unit in the hospital, or the NICU I think it's called in this book, and she is a coloured nurse, and a white supremacist couple come in and their baby is in the unit, and they don't want this nurse to have anything to do with their baby, and something happens and the nurse has to intervene and the baby dies, and I think that they sue the hospital or they sue the nurse, and it kind of follows the story of prejudices and where we get our prejudices from, and just all the kind of difficult subject matters that Jodi Picoult really loves to challenge us to think about. And I'm so excited to read this book. I'm probably not going to pick it up now till 2017, but I literally cannot wait to read it. I love pretty much everything that this woman has written, and the cover of this hardback is absolutely gorgeous. It's got like this copper or rose gold spine down the side, and then the rose gold writing on the front. I just think that it is absolutely gorgeous, and I picked this up because hardback books are usually between £15 and £20 in the UK, and it was on sale for £4. So how could I say no? And then in that same order, I picked up a trio of Maya Angelou books. This was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and Still I Rise, and Gather Together in My Name. And I believe that this is a book of short poems. This is a book of poetry, and these two are the first and second one in Maya Angelou's autobiography series, and I'm just really excited to read these. I've seen quite a few video clips featuring her, and I've read quite a few quotes by Maya Angelou, and she just seems like a really fascinating and insightful person, and I'm really excited to get some more history on who she is and her background story. Next up, we have got The Winter Crown by Elizabeth Chadwick. Elizabeth Chadwick is a historical fiction author, and I really enjoy the stuff that she writes. She's probably comparable to the likes of Philippa Gregory for me. She wrote The Greatest Night book, which is about the Earl of Pembroke, which is one of my all-time favourite books, and this particular book is set in 1154, and it's about the story of Eleanor of Aquitaine, who is a very famous figure in British history, so I'm really fascinated to read her take on Eleanor's story. Then I picked up The Bone Tree by Greg Ills. I read Natchez Burning by Greg Ills a couple of years ago, and I think that this one is actually the first one in his series that's known as the Pen Cage series, and this is the first book. I didn't realise that at the time, but I really enjoyed it nonetheless. Basically, I would compare Greg Ills to John Grisham, but with a bit more plotline and story to his books rather than just a lot of legal knowledge. So it's still a legal thriller, but you get a little bit more of a fleshed out book, as you can see by the size of it, compared to John Grisham. But I really enjoyed it. I liked that he simplified a lot of the legal terms, because obviously being British and reading about American legal systems can be quite complicated sometimes and difficult to get my head around, and he kind of simplifies it a little bit whilst still writing a very enjoyable thriller. Then a book that I mentioned only very recently, I've got Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, and I absolutely love this cover. I just think that it is gorgeous. This is about a young woman in Iceland who has been accused of murder and is awaiting a date for her execution, and while she is awaiting a date for her execution, she is sent to live in the house of a priest with his family, and I think that it's a dark exploration of her story, life in Iceland, all that kind of thing. And I mentioned this in a TBR video, I think, and so many people said how dark it was, but how heartbreaking it was, and what a really moving read it was. So I'm really excited to find out more about what this is. And then the final book that I picked up was Flawed by Cecilia Ahern. I actually bought this for my sister, and then I was so intrigued by the premise of it that I went back and bought it for myself. This is a YA book, and I think it might also be dystopian. It's about a young girl who lives in a society where perfection is everything, and she makes a mistake, and because she's made this mistake or she's broken this rule, it means that she's going to be branded and will therefore be known as flawed. I don't know much more about it than that. I understand that it's quite a moving and heartbreaking commentary, and I'm just really excited to read it. I think that it sounds really fascinating. The blurb on the back is quite vague, and I'm always intrigued by books like that, because I think that there is just hidden depths to them, and that the authors have decided to keep the blurb on the back vague for a reason. So I'm quite happy to go into this one pretty blind, and I think that it sounds really interesting. So there you go, they are the books that I picked up in between the months of September and December. Do let me know in the comment section down below if you've read any of them and what your thoughts were. I always love to chat about books, or you can find me on Twitter at JJ McGlynn. I hope that you all have a lovely Christmas, and I will see you all soon.